The Women's March has been a rallying cry answered by over 5 million women worldwide. I walked the streets to march here in New York, but this year some ugly accusations and controversies threaten to overshadow this amazing movement. So we're here, here to tell us what they're going to do to make things right. Please welcome the co-presidents of the Women's March, Tamika Mallory and Bob Bland. Yes, Bob Bland. So the first Women's March took place the day after the new guy was inaugurated on January 21st. And it became one of the largest protests in history, and it happened all over the country. You organized D.C. What was your response when you saw how people were coming?
Well, I mean, it was incredible. You know, obviously the turnout and also just all of the emotion that went into the planning. We actually organized not just D.C., nationally and internationally. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot of work that went into that day, and obviously the culmination of it was great. But many of us, particularly the women of color who stepped in to, because we were called to come and be leaders of the march to ensure that the march was diverse. We weren't really shocked that people were so angry and had this such of an intense feeling. Mm-hmm. We knew that this country was in trouble, and it was only before a moment in history that would come that we would all need to be called to the table to address it.
And I just, as a new activist, looking at 1.2 million women and allies just in D.C. alone, I thought these are the leaders we're looking for. Mm-hmm. And we always wanted to see these women become the face of our leadership and the face of the nation. And I think that's what we saw in the midterm elections, where we saw a historical outpouring of thousands of women running for office. Mm-hmm. And in the Congress alone, over 100 coming into Congress this time.
Well, there has been some controversy surrounding the Women's March organization. And Tamika, you came under some fire for your relationship with Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. Now, he's known for being anti-Semitic, for being homophobic, but you attend his events, and you posted, I believe, a photo together calling him the GOAT, which means the greatest of all time. And you are running an organization that says it fights bigotry. Do you understand why your association with him is quite problematic?
No, I think it's important to put my attendance, my presence at Year's Day, which is the highest holy day for the Nation of Islam, in context. Okay. You know, as a leader, as a Black leader, a country that is still dealing with some very serious unresolved issues as it relates to the Black experience in this country, going to a lot of difficult spaces. I wrote a piece immediately following the beginning of this controversy, talking about wherever my people are, that's where I must also be. So I also go into prisons where there are people who have been convicted of heinous acts. And I am trying to help people to move from wherever they are today and build that unity to bring them to a place where we live in a more fair and equitable society. And I think that work is not easy for everyone to understand, but it's certainly work that I'm committed to. And everywhere that I go is difficult. The Women's March was very difficult. I met with a lot of women who did not even understand race was important to be a part of the conversation as it relates to women's rights issues. And there was a lot of, offensive rhetoric that I heard. And, and just because to a space with someone does not mean that you agree with everything that they say.
But let me push back a little bit. Why call him the greatest?
I didn't call him the greatest of all time because of his rhetoric. I called him the greatest of all time because of what he's done in Black communities. And I think that,
let me just interject really quickly. I would never be comfortable supporting someone who called, I'm not anti-Semite and I'm anti-termite. It's the wicked Jews, the false Jews that are promoting lesbianism, homosexuality. I actually spoke with the journalist from Tablet magazine who released an investigation report on your organization. And in part, they alleged that there is a lot of anti-Semitism surrounding this march. Specifically, the report alleged that you, Tamika, and co-founder Carmen Perez asserted that, quote, Jewish people had a history of exploiting Black people and were proven to be leaders of the American slave trade. Now, a lot of people, by a lot of people I include me in this, think that you're using your organization as anti-Semitism masked in activism, and that you're using identity politics to shield yourself from critiques. You're talking about all women being invited to that march. I'm pro-life. We were not invited. We were not allowed at that march right there. I'm a conservative woman. I also represent, if you're talking about women, you should be talking about all women, including Jewish women as well, and conservative women.
Well, Medgan, so,
are those allegations true?
Well, first of all, those allegations are not true. That is not how that meeting happened. And the Women's March...
So the journalist I spoke to was lying?
The people that the journalist spoke to did not tell the truth. Period. Full stop.
That's it.
And I think it's important for us to understand and all be very clear in this room that the Women's March unequivocally condemns anti-Semitism, bigotry.
Condemn Farrakhan's remarks about Jewish people.
Yes, and we have repeatedly in statement after statement this year, which are available directly on our website for anyone to read. We condemn any statements of hate, and we've actually been working so hard over the last 2 years to fight this type of hate over and over again, and we're committed to repairing any harm because we understand that the Jewish community is feeling hurt right now. And we want to make sure...
I don't speak for Jewish people, but I think I'm just confused. These remarks are... I mean, it goes on death to Israel over and over again.
We did not make those remarks. You can't.
But you're associating with a man who does publicly.
What I will say to you is that I don't agree with many of Minister Farrakhan's statements.
Specifically about Jewish people.
As I said, I don't agree with Minister Farrakhan's statements.
You condemn them?
I don't agree with these statements. At the end of the day,
you won't condemn it.
No. To be very clear, it's not my language. It's not the way that I speak. It is not how I organize. And I think it is very clear over the 20 years of my own personal activism, my own personal track record, who I am. And that I should never be judged through the lens of a man. Okay. That is actually not what this women's movement is supposed to be about.
Be judged through the lens of something that's speaking for all women. When you're associating with extreme anti-Semitism, and are you comfortable, both of you, being on stage with a Trump supporter, someone who's pro-life, someone who is a very, vociferous...
Yes, we are.
Yeah. All right, so you're going to have a Trump-supporting woman, conservative pro-life woman on stage with you guys at the next march.
There was absolutely no prerequisite for people coming into the march.
Pro-life women.
That is not true. So, and I actually have pro-life women in my family who, as a result of the Women's March, have been engaging in what we call courageous conversations with me over the last 2 years that have helped expand all of our understanding. We welcome pro-life women. We welcome women to the Women's March. The Women's March is open to all.
I appreciate you both coming and speaking.
So my last question is, do you understand why people feel that you stepping down might put some air between all of this before a conversation can continue?
I also know of people who don't want me to step down. And so, there's both sides of that. There are people who actually support my leadership, and I am willing to lead until my term at Women's March is up.
Okay. Thank you, We'll be right back.